Thank you. Okay, just let us know when we're live.
And if you need 5 minutes, then I think.
We're live.
Well, I made a call with a long time with the old word side. And
Thank you.
Right. Oh, a couple of seconds early, but never mind. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of South Oxfordshire District Council Planning Committee. I am Councillor David Brotherson, and I'll be chairing this meeting. May I remind everyone that this is a meeting in public and not a public meeting. Only members of the public who are registered to speak are allowed to do so. And I'll call in to speak during the appropriate agenda item. The meeting is being held in our offices at Abbey House. Abbey committee members are here in person, but officers and speakers are able to join remotely. This meeting is being streamed live on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. This system allows councillors who are unable to attend in person to contribute to the meeting, but only councillors who are present in the room are allowed to vote. Some procedure matters. For speakers and members of the public who have joined remotely, please ensure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is switched off for the duration of the meeting until you are called to speak. The Planning Committee is a decision-making committee of the Council, and it is important that a set procedure is followed. All committee members have received a full report on each planning application, either on paper or electronically, and it should be noted that committee members and officers may be using electronic devices for reference throughout the meeting. For each application, we will first hear from the planning officer, followed by the parish or town council, and then objectors, supporters and local members. Each group will have 5 minutes to speak to the committee, after which members may ask questions of the speaker. The committee will then ask questions of the planning officer. The committee will then debate and vote on the application. Councillors wishing to ask a question or participate in the debate are asked to indicate this by alerting myself or officers by raising a hand. Voting will be by show of hands. Members, please raise your hand clearly and keep it raised to allow a count to take place. If it is unclear how members are voting through a show of hands, I'll ask the clerk to undertake a roll call of those present and how they are voting. There are a few housekeeping announcements. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to the right of this room, and go to assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services officer here present will assist you. Can everyone please ensure that their mobile phone is switched to silent or switched off during the meeting? Members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been heard are welcome to do so by the front door reception. When the meeting is finished, I will ask for confirmation that the live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the meeting and make your way out of the building. Remember to sign out as you leave. My announcements, back to the agenda. Agenda item 2 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillors Gordon Creed, Keats Rohan and Higgins, and we have Councillor Ramsdale in attendance as substitute for Councillor Keats Rohan.
Thank you. Minutes
David,
of the previous
could I ask a
question?
question? Sorry, David. It's Andy Gilbert here. I've got a hard stop at 7. Could I do my little bit before then? Is that possible?
I hope so.
All right, thank you.
We have to keep the procedure. Yeah, I very much hope so, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay. Minutes of the previous meeting. To adopt and sign as a correct record of the planning committee meetings, the meeting held on the 11th of March 2026. Thank you. Is that agreed? Thank you. Declaration of interest to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda for this meeting. Well done, Chairman. I normally stumble over that, don't I? Urgent business? Is there any urgent business? No. There's no urgent business. Okay, so we'll go to the planning applications. The first planning application is P24 S2886, land north of Rycote Lane, and the planning officer is Nicola Smith. Nicola, take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. This is a full planning application for the relocation of the tame livestock market to this site on the edge of the town, together with 3 commercial units acting as an extension to the existing Christmas Hill Business Park. The site is located within Great Hazley parish, although close to the boundary with Tame and well located to the town. The site's roughly rectangular in shape and occupies approximately 3/4 of an agricultural field. Access to the commercial units is proposed via the existing business park, and this is shown by the sort of handle to the red line plan. To the west of the site, the red line also encompasses a drainage outfall to an existing ditch. At present, the field is open and relatively flat. The photograph on the left shows looks north through the site, and the photograph on the right shows the hedge at the front of the site to Rycote Lane, some of which will be removed to make way for the access to the livestock market element of the proposals. And just for further context, this site shows the Christmas Hill Business Park when it was under construction as viewed from Rycote Lane. Beyond that, you can see the car breakers business in the distance, which is ASM Recycling, and occupies a large site to the east of the business park. There has been a livestock market in Tame since the Middle Ages, with the current site in North Street in the centre of the town having been occupied since the 1950s. However, this site is constrained and outdated, with insufficient space for parking and manoeuvring in particular. Attempts have been made over the past quite a few years, by the livestock market to find a new site, and planning permission was originally granted on this site in 2020, the whole site to be used as a livestock market. The plan on the screen now shows that permitted layout with the livestock building in the centre, space for lairage at the front and sheep penning at the rear. However, costs of construction have risen, and there's now a significant funding gap that needs to be filled to enable the livestock market to relocate. The proposal now on screen is not viable to deliver in this form. This plan shows what is now proposed in the application in front of you, with the livestock market building at the front of the site, accessed directly from Rycote Lane, and 3 large commercial units located at the rear of the site, which are accessed through the existing business park. These units are proposed to be flexible uses within the B1, which is general industrial, or B8 storage and distribution classes, with ancillary office areas. They are not proposed to be retail of any type or solely office buildings. The principle of a livestock market at this site has been established through the previous permission, and this element directly complies with policy EMP 10 of the South Oxfordshire local plan, which supports rural businesses. However, policy EMP 10 does not support ad hoc commercial development in the countryside. So the proposed commercial units are not directly in accordance with the spatial strategy for South Oxfordshire. It was therefore necessary through the planning process for the applicant to show that the commercial units were required to make the construction of the livestock market viable. A report was prepared by the applicant's consultants and has been independently assessed by the council's viability consultants. The independent assessment concluded that the commercial units were indeed necessary to assist with the funding gap that exists, and without them, the livestock market element of the proposal would not be financially viable. Officers are therefore able to support the proposed commercial units in principle, as they're enabling development, even though they do not directly comply with policy. Turning to the design of the proposed buildings, this plan shows the elevations of the proposed commercial units at the rear of the site. They follow the design of and are similar in scale to the larger units at the rear of the existing Christmas Hill Business Park. The design and the materials of these buildings are in keeping with the existing business park buildings and are therefore considered acceptable. The livestock building itself is of a more simple, plain design that is markedly different from the neighbouring business park. It has more of a utilitarian appearance. Information has been provided by animal welfare experts explaining that ventilation is important to prevent the spread of disease in situations where a lot of animals are located close together. And that key principle has informed the scale and design of this building. Whilst plain in appearance, it is not out of keeping with a modern agricultural building and is therefore considered acceptable in this location. And finally, I need to update members on one amended condition and two additional conditions to those reported in the at the end of the report pack. Firstly, with regards to drainage, on closer inspection, the drainage officer has agreed that the wording of condition 5 can be altered to read: prior to the commencement of the development, the southern boundary ditch and downstream culvert at the western edge of the site shall be surveyed and inspected, and a report supplied to the local planning authority detailing the findings, together with details of any work necessary to clear, repair or extend the approved drainage works, and thereafter to clean, repair and extend the drainage works as necessary to ensure that the drainage works meet the drainage requirements of the development. And the development should not be occupied until the drainage works have been inspected and any further work carried out to ensure the ditch and culverts are fully functional. And furthermore, it's necessary to add two conditions regarding the Great Crested Newt licence that the applicant has already obtained. These were omitted from the original list. They're on screen now, but I'll read them out for you. No development hereby permitted shall take place except in accordance with the terms and conditions of the council's organisational licence or a further licence, and with the proposals detailed on plan land north of Rycote Lane, impact plan for Great Crested Newt district licensing version 1 with the date. And the second condition there is no development hereby permitted shall take place except in accordance with part 1 of the Great Crested Newt mitigation principles as set out on the district licence or a further licence. And in addition, compliance with the following: works which will likely affect newt hibernacula may only be undertaken during the active period for amphibians. Capture methods must be used at suitable habitat features prior to the commencement of the development, i.e. hand destructive / night searches, which may include the use of temporary amphibian fencing to prevent newts moving onto the development site from adjacent suitable habitat, installed for the period of the development and removed upon completion of the development. And both of those are to ensure that any impacts on Great Crested Newts are adequately mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Okay, we have a number of speakers. We'll come back to you, I'm sure, with questions. We have a number of speakers. The first one is from Tame Town Council, and the representative is Andy Gilbert. Councillor Gilbert. Andy, I know you're there.
I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you fine and see you.
Good,
You're fine.
thank you.
Start when you want. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I just really to build on the very comprehensive report Nicola just made. Tame Town Council is fully supportive of this move. We've had this requirement in our neighbourhood plan, both the first one in 2012 and the Tame Neighbourhood Plan second version that we got agreed last year with help from SODC. So it's a long held need really in the town for the reasons, again, Nicola outlined them: animal welfare, access, the proximity of the current site to an infant school and parking thereof is just makes the whole site less appropriate for the current age. Whilst we don't normally comment on developments in other people's parishes, we have had very good discussions with Great Hazley Parish Council, and we believe we've got an agreement in place that as and when this plan comes to fruition, that they would cede the land, again, that Nicola outlined in her document. So we're fully supportive of this. It's very important that we free up that space within the town, which we feel we can put to better use for retail and other infrastructure things, particularly as we're looking at a lot of growth, not just in Tame, but also the recently announced Bucks County Council plans we feel are going to impact on us as a kind of a support town for Haddenham and Long Crendon that will be impacted by that. So fully supportive. We have had discussions. We feel that we're in a good position with Great Hazley Parish. The last thing I'd say is really encouraging as well to hear that the draining works that Nicola outlined are going to be done prior to, in terms of inspection. Even earlier this year, there's a horrendous flooding problem, which probably councillors are aware of, just along that little stretch. So if that could be addressed prior to this development, it would help everybody. And of course, we're pleased that the great crested newts are being taken care of as well. So all in all, we're fully supportive, and thanks for the opportunity to reinforce Nicola's report.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy. Committee, have you got any questions for Councillor Gilbert? I've seen none, so thank you very much. That's you're free to go then, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay. Our next speakers are a double act: Jake Collins and Will Taylor. You are supporters, so I guess the agents, and you have 5 minutes from the moment you start speaking.
Chairman, members of the committee, can I thank you for the opportunity of addressing you this evening? Can I open by introducing my colleague Will Taylor, who has considerable knowledge in respect to the livestock market and will be able to answer any queries in this regard. Can I also thank the planning officer for not only a balanced and comprehensive report, but also for their diligent approach throughout the processing of the application. And I would, of course, commend their recommendation to you. As you will be aware, the livestock market, which has been in Thame for centuries, currently occupies a site in Thame Town Centre that for some time now has not been fit for purpose. Indeed, facilitating and delivering relocation of the market has been actively pursued for at least the last 2 decades, and is not only critical to the long-term future of the market, but is also key to enabling the redevelopment of the existing North Street site. This represents the last previously developed site of any significant scale in Thame Town Centre, and one that is subject to site-specific policy in the Thame Neighbourhood Plan that seeks redevelopment for a mixture of civic, community, retail, business and residential uses. As detailed in the report, a planning application was submitted in 2017 for a livestock market on the site. Permission was granted, and whilst works were undertaken to implement that permission, it became apparent that there was a significant funding gap that could not be bridged to deliver the approved scheme. Accordingly, and whilst it was recognised that the livestock building would need redesigning to both meet up-to-date animal welfare standards and reduce cost, and it is worthy of note that the build cost is some 3.5 million less than the approved scheme, a funding gap still remained, requiring a facilitating development. A pre-application inquiry was therefore submitted to the council in 2022 for an alternative livestock building with, to provide value and bridge the gap, commercial development on the northern section of the site as an extension to the successful Christmas Hill Business Park. The response, whilst highlighting a number of technical matters, detailed that the extent of commercial development could be no more than the minimum necessary in order to bridge the funding gap, and that this would need to be evidenced by a full and open viability assessment. That assessment has been submitted with the application and fully validated on these terms by your consultants, Aspinall Birdie. Process in reaching this point has therefore been extensive, considered, and to some extent time-consuming. However, what I am able to say is that, subject to the decision you make this evening and the resolution of any conditional matters, the intent is to commence work on site this autumn, with the development to be carried out under a single build contract, with the commercial developer contractually committed to delivering the livestock building to Category A standard prior to the occupation of any of the commercial buildings. Not only is that commitment a measure of the confidence that the commercial developer has in Thame as a place to invest, it would also bring an end to a 2-decade-long process of securing the long-term future of the livestock market in Thame, unlocking a number of significant and substantial social, cultural and economic benefits associated with both the scheme and the potential redevelopment of the existing town centre site. The scheme itself has evolved through the planning application process, resolving a number of technical matters, including flooding, drainage, highways, ecology, landscape, and arboriculture. These technical considerations have, as set out in the report, been addressed in full and to the satisfaction of both your specialist officers and those of the County Council. Moreover, the joint applicants have focused on delivering environmental sustainability, be that through the buildings, which will achieve BREEAM Excellent and EPC rating A, deliver carbon reduction and utilise renewable energy sources, and through the infrastructure, including footways and cycleway connections and EV charging provision and capability throughout, and through the site landscaping, which seeks to mitigate effects, maximise on-site biodiversity and secure biodiversity resilience. Whilst it is acknowledged that the development will result in change to the character of the area, change that is already implicit through the terms of the extant permission, it is considered in the context of a lack of any technical objection that the significant social, economic, cultural and environmental benefits that would be delivered by the scheme, not just in isolation, but in facilitating the potential redevelopment of the existing town centre site for a wide range of beneficial purposes, are such that when these factors are weighed in the overall planning balance, there is a compelling case to grant planning permission for the scheme. I do therefore fully endorse the recommendations of the officer to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Spot on time, actually. Okay, committee. We got any questions? Now, stopping.
Thank you. We considered this application about a year ago, and there were comments at the time about the height of the buildings. I'm just curious that the scheme that was given permission in 2020, which isn't an awfully long time ago, it had a height to the ridge of 8.37 metres. And presumably that was put forward as being adequate for animal welfare at that moment in time. Have the animal welfare regulations changed that much since 2020 that's required a building that is almost twice as high? That's the only thing about this. I think, on a personal basis, I get the need for this building. I understand why it needs to be relocated. I understand why you need additional units to help with the viability. The only thing that I, on a personal basis, find difficult about it is why it needs to be this high, given that a building was put forward for this use at 8.37 metres to the ridge, which would give a hell of a lot of head height above the height of a cow. And why it needs to now be the best part of 15 metres, which is more like the height you'd get in the distribution warehouse.
That is a question that your officer has critically examined us on, and I'm not going to answer it, but I'm going to look to my left because the gentleman is more an expert than me on that particular point.
So my role is Chartered Surveyor and Agricultural Consultant to the applicant. There's been new animal welfare acts introduced in 2024. We consider that does, and that is the Animal Welfare Livestock Export Act 2024. The revised design has been, and the introduction of that new act is an example of the increased scrutiny of sale of livestock in public spaces, which we consider that livestock markets will be subjected to, and accordingly the design of the market seeks to ensure, where possible, that the longest possible economic lifespan of the buildings. And we've taken additional advice from the market's veterinary surgeon to look at ways to reduce particular issues with pneumonia, which has resulted in this high ridge height building.
And there was talk about ventilation. Is the roof going to? How is the ventilation going to work? Is there going to be mechanical ventilation in there, or is it just purely relying on the height of the building? Is there going to be opening elements in the roof?
So it's natural ventilation.
Yeah,
and the external sides of the building will be a mixture of hit and miss boarding and open sections,
right,
to avoid cooling of high dense areas of warm air, which are the biggest factors and creators of pneumonia risk in livestock building.
Right. So it's actually going to be open to the air and the wind and what have you coming through the building. Yeah, because it's not very clear on those plans what those lighter coloured elements in the roof are.
So those are roof lights.
Yes,
and those will be covered to avoid rain coming down onto the animals that are in the pens. But we will have hit and miss boarding, so there'll be gaps in the side elevations to allow air to come through.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Councillor Norman?
Yes, somewhat of a follow-up to Councillor Topping's question. So I'm a livestock farmer myself, and although I don't use Thames Market, I'm extremely sympathetic and to the very great importance that livestock markets have in the agricultural world. Are you saying, in your answer just given now, are you saying that height is mandated now? I sort of heard something. I heard something slightly less than that, as if this was, well, you're trying to future-proof it against future possible changes in legislation. You've also consulted the livestock markets veterinary surgeon and so on. Is this, to me, this does seem extremely high. So I'm just going back to the objection from Great Hazley Parish Council. The size of the associated commercial development, sorry, that is the commercial development, which I'm coming on to the rear of the site must be the minimum required to support the development of the livestock market. Does the livestock market have to be this height?
This isn't a mandated height by a piece of legislation. However, we think it is the height that is best for animal welfare and the longevity of the site and for its continued use.
Is there any mezzanine flooring or any use of that height elsewhere in the building? So it's entirely open space.
It's entirely open space for the lairage and the penning. At the front of the building, where you can see the sign that says signage zone, that's the market support building at the front.
Yeah,
that is not as high as the rest of the building.
Yeah. Yes, I've kept cattle most of my life, and I've never seen a case of pneumonia. But not in buildings that are 15 meters high, either in traditional agricultural buildings. So I do realise that animal welfare legislation is very tight, that you have to comply with everything that is mandated or indeed that might be mandated and so on. And this is sort of best practice. Can I move on? But it is a stumbling point in this particular application. Can I move on to the commercial buildings? Why do they have to be so high? I mean, they are enormous. And they are, I believe, 2-storey. Is that right? It's not quite clear from our very diminished plans, but it looks as if there are offices on the first floor of those buildings. Is that right?
There's a very small minor ancillary component of offices on the first floor, but I would say less than 10% of the overall.
So why do they need to be so high? This is 50 feet high.
Well, they are comparable in height to the neighbouring units, albeit they are set on ground 2 meters lower. So they're actually, in real terms, 3 meters lower in height than the neighbouring Christmas Hill Business Park units at the rear end of the site.
Those buildings are that kind of height, are they?
Yes, they are. Yeah, and this is 3 meters lower, given the difference in level between the sites. And they are there to primarily, and have been, based on the occupancies that we've seen on the first phase of the development, primarily B8 storage uses that do require extensive internal racking and the heights that go with that. So it's a standard approach in commercial buildings of that nature of use, and that's evident from the first phase of development.
Okay, and just picking up on that specific question from Great Hazley, which I see as a stumbling block to this. This is the size of the associated commercial development must be the minimum required to support the development. Now, we've heard that a report was done. The report, I presume, was commissioned by the applicant, but was verified by officers, and they have deemed that that is required in order to support this development. So the question is a very simple one. Do the commercial developments need to be that large in order to support this development? And as a second to that, is the applicant selling those off or letting them, or what is the commercial arrangement around those?
I can answer the first part, you can answer the second part. Well, I can it's evident from what has been a very extensive viability assessment that was presented to the council and validated, is that the floor area of the commercial units and the value that those commercial units generate is the minimum necessarily to provide the capital sufficient to bridge the funding gap to enable the livestock development to take place. I'm sure Will, who's probably more closely involved, might add a little bit further to that.
So, Mr. Norman, the site that Tame Market have purchased is subject to an option agreement with W Land, who is our joint applicant for the scheme, to deliver the commercial element of the scheme. If the scheme is successful, they will purchase that site from Tame Market, and together there will be a development contract to deliver the scheme jointly. They will then let the site, and they may then sell at a later date to an investment portfolio.
I see. So although the site is currently owned by whom?
The entire site is currently owned by Tame Market. It was purchased back in 2016.
But they have an agreement.
We have an agreement with W Land, which is the joint applicant to the scheme. So they are responsible for ultimately, if this consent is accepted, they will purchase the northern part of the site to deliver in conjunction with the Tame Market, the two schemes contemporaneously.
Okay. And did the earlier scheme that was passed, actually we know this was applied for in 2017, not passed until 2020. Why didn't that go ahead and get built straight away?
Simply due to the cost.
By the time that time had passed, the costs had risen to such an extent.
The consent was not granted in February 2020, I think. And by the time we were then able to mobilise and obtain detailed tender analysis of the cost to deliver the site, we were in, unfortunately, that super cycle of excessive costs for construction during the period of COVID. The design for the extant scheme is a much more complicated scheme, and it delivers a larger floor area with more support space, buildings, and additional lairage and multifunctional space originally on the eastern and western elevations. That has been totally rationalised and removed as part of this application. So whilst this building is higher, it is a simplified design, and the height is purely from an animal welfare state, but also there is a link to the way that the stanchions are set out for the delivery of that single span building. So that's why we have that slightly.
Okay, thank you for all of those. Just one more question. So you have had to, the site looks very crowded.
Yeah.
And you've had to put this livestock building into half the area originally. I accept there was a lot of lairage and other areas and so on. Is it going to do the job? Are the livestock auctioneers happy that this is a fully functional site and will last, another century or so into the future?
And it's a good question. We've spent a lot of time discussing that with Tame Market, their board of directors, and the auctioneers, and we think it is a site that is something that is fit for purpose and has a long lifespan. I don't know if it's possible to go back to the previous slides to show the original consent, but you'll note that where the proposed phase of commercial is outdoor sheep fair, temporary penning, for the idea at the time was to relocate the sheep fair, which is on Tame Town Council Agricultural Society land, to there. We've had to forego that opportunity there. So that land will still be required, but as a market, it's fully functional and fit for purpose.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was generous of that because I know of Councillor Norman's background and things. So I think it's very relevant. Councillor Sadler, you had a question?
It was about the Great Hazley objection, and Councillor Norman's covered it. So
we covered. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Anybody else got any questions? I don't think they have. That's been quite comprehensive, I think, really. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time and comments. I have Councillor Barker down to speak, but I don't see him. No, I haven't seen him in the room and I don't see him online. So we'll go back now to the planning officer. I've got one question for you straight off. Yeah. There aren't any great newts on the site, are there?
No, great crested newts are on an adjacent site where there's a pond.
Yeah.
But they do have a tendency to travel, and so the license is there just in case there's any found on the site.
So just to clarification, yeah. So all those considered to stop the great crested newts getting onto the site. Yeah. Okay. Other committee. Have anybody else got any questions of the planning officer? Councillor Norman.
Just one or two, not many, not so many. Is there has any assessment been made, viability assessment for the demand for these commercial units?
The demand was considered by the council's economic development team, who have noted the fairly quick uptake from of units on the Christmas Hill Business Park, and they have made positive comments about the development in general, and don't raise any issues about whether there will be demand for this. So internally, we have looked at that, and no concerns have been raised about any demand for that.
Councillor Topping.
Sorry, back to heights. In your report, you mentioned that the height of the buildings on the Christmas Hill Business Park adjoining vary from 9.8 to 14.5 metres. So the proposed buildings at 13 to 15 metres high, they really are right at the top end. I just wanted to make that point because that I didn't think came out from the last two speakers' comments, that they may not be taller than the tallest, and obviously if the site slopes, then there is that benefit. But we are talking about very, very major buildings, and that's correct, is it, that the range is 9.8 to 14.8?
Yes, I believe so. Took that from the application for the Christmas Hill Business Park.
Yeah.
When that was considered. So yes.
And they seemingly have let those buildings, even though they're sub 10 metres.
There's a variety. There's a variety of uses on the Christmas Hill Business Park. Those at the front are smaller units, lower in height, and they are offices.
Okay.
So I understand that the smaller units are for offices and perhaps a B1 light industrial maybe. The larger units, particularly those at the back of the site, are B2 or B8 storage and distribution.
Because heights of 13 or 15 metres, I worked in warehousing development for 25 years. They would very much be for warehouse type uses.
Yes.
And we're happy that the site could accommodate the sort of lorry movements that would be associated with warehouses on that scale, because I believe these probably will be warehouses, particularly if built to this size and scale.
Yes, we are happy with that. Yes, there is. You probably can't see it there. There are turning circles marked on that plan of a lorry that would be able to enter the site, turn, perhaps reverse into the building, and come out again. The county council are happy in terms of manoeuvring. So yes, we are satisfied that can be accommodated.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Can I just add to that? The Tame neighbourhood plan supported additional units such as this. There was nowhere else in the Tame that they could be provided. So yeah. Right. Okay. Any further questions for the planning officer, Councillor Norman?
So yes, I hadn't quite finished, Chair. It's clear from your report, without sort of detailing it all, that the commercial units would not have got planning permission on their own. They're outside of EMP 10. They're not covered by EMP 10. You've said that their proposal does not fully meet ENV 1 and so on. There are various reasons why those would not normally be allowed on this site.
Yes.
Therefore, we need to be sure, I think, that we're not being blackmailed, if I may use such a strong word, into accepting something that wouldn't normally be allowed simply because the application that we would like to approve, potentially, is saying they can't do it unless they get this. Is in planning terms, how does that stand? Is this justified? Because you haven't been able to justify those buildings on any other terms other than, well, we have to build them because otherwise we can't have a livestock market.
Yeah, that's correct. And this is something that we've considered. The applicants themselves put forward a suggestion of a condition, and we've included that in condition number 22, which basically ties the development of the livestock building to the commercial units. So it's not going to be the case that the commercial units will be built and the livestock market won't. They are tied together. So yes, in planning terms, you're right, the commercial units wouldn't be acceptable on their own. And so we've taken steps to ensure that they wouldn't be built just on their own.
Yeah, or they wouldn't be built even adjoining a livestock market had it not been for this economic case.
That's correct.
Being made by the livestock market. So it hangs, a great deal hangs on that.
That's correct.
On this case. And are you satisfied that the full development at that height and with a very large footprint is justified to make the case for the livestock market viable, economic case?
The economic case, yes. Yes, I am satisfied. The consultants that we've had look at the viability assessment are very reputable. We use them quite a lot for lots of different types of development. They've come back and very unequivocally said, yes, this is absolutely necessary, and it is the minimum.
Did we commission that?
Yes,
that assessment.
we did.
Then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I can say when that assessment came in, I really thoroughly, because I wanted to be sure of that question myself, and they came down unequivocally saying, yes, the two are dependent. Yeah, one can't exist without the other one, and the viability is there. There's a very, very good report. I'm quite pleased with that report. Yeah.
Chair, Councillor Barker is now online.
Councillor Barker.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, Peter. Right, a little bit late, but you have your 5 minutes as local member.
Oh, that's very kind of the committee. Thank you. Apologies. I got stuck on the M25 heading back home. But yes, I just wanted to say a few words as one of the ward councillors for Tame, where of course this application is very well known, and the cattle market itself is, one of the greatly valued features of the town and of our local community. And we all appreciate that it's been a very lengthy, very thorough process which has been followed in order to get to this point. And those of us who are councillors, I'm sure planning committee members especially, appreciate that, why that's necessary. And therefore, as a result, what we have is a very robust proposal. And I think, as has already been touched on, one that has the necessary financial business case viability behind it in order to be successful. And that's really the only points that I wanted to stress on behalf of the community of Tame. And of course, retaining the cattle markets locally is phenomenally important for us as part of our history, our heritage, and of course today part of our local economy. There aren't that many cattle markets left, where of course there used to be very, very many. I don't know exactly how far you have to go to the next one, but it's some considerable distance, and we see lorries arriving at the cattle market just round down the road from me at the moment from all over the country, many times a week. So it's a very successful enterprise, and we certainly want to find a way to allow it to continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Any questions? No. Thank you, Councillor Barker. I'm just wondering where we are now in the Are we finished with the questions for the planning officer? Okay, so I'm looking for a proposal. Councillor Norman.
I propose that we accept the officer's recommendation and
For approval. Okay, thank you very much. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor MacDonald. Is there any debate? Anybody wish to speak? I think I should let Councillor Norman actually speak to his proposal first.
Well, I think we've heard a very good case that this is the only way to deliver something which Town wishes very much, that Tame Livestock Market wishes very much that they could not continue on the present site. And this appears to be a very carefully thought out plan to deliver something which would have huge economic benefit to the town, both in terms of this development and the development that will go on their current site. And that everything that could have mitigated it has been looked at and has been done, and therefore that it should be approved.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Norman. Councillor MacDonald, do you wish to speak to second this?
Only say I was absolutely gutted when the livestock market in Perth closed down, and the nearest one is Stirling now. At least in this proposed development, Thames sort of retains its livestock market, which is the lifeblood of the rural economy, and it looks like it has a stunning future ahead of it. Support this.
Thank you. That's the topic you wish to speak.
Yeah, just to say I will be voting for it because I see the massive benefits that will flow from it. I'm just disappointed that the building has been dumbed down to this extent. And I'm disappointed that the enabling development has to be on this scale and of this height. In order to make it work. It surprises me how much has changed, even if one dates it back to 2017, that the whole form of development is so radically different. But I get it that we've been through all the processes, we've made all the checks, we've looked at the numbers, and we're satisfied that the only way that we're going to get this cattle market to work and to stay in the town of Tame is by providing or allowing this opportunity to go ahead in this form. So slightly disappointed at the quality of what we're getting, but I feel that we should be supporting it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Topping. Anybody else wish to speak? No? Councillor Howlett.
Yeah, just one, Chairman. On our agenda, we've got 24 conditions. Can we make sure that we have 25 and 26?
Yeah, when we come to it will be with the changed condition 5, is that?
Yeah.
With amended condition 5 and the additional 2 conditions, which is what we'll be voting on when we come to vote it. I'm just going to go back to Councillor Norman to sum up.
I don't need to amplify what I said already. I do agree with Councillor Topping's comments that this is, I really like the original design. It's a great shame that couldn't get built. It's a shame we have to be here. I don't know whether there is still room to make sure that the conditions for mitigating the appearance of the buildings, in other words, tree planting around the outside of this site. We're told in the report that there's very limited space for that, but I think there's nearly always space for a line of trees, pretty much everywhere. So I would strongly encourage the officers to make sure that that is followed through. But otherwise, I think that we are bound to pass this application.
Okay, so the budgetary committee has been proposed and seconded, as we are aware, with the additional 2 conditions and an amended condition 5. Yes, okay, all those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you very much, committee. I'm sorry, one objection. Yep. Okay. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 for, 1 against. Thank you. I can now say that Councillor Arlett and I have a meeting next month to discuss the boundary, moving the boundary, so this is actually in take.
Almost is it?
I know, but it doesn't stop Great Haisley having a legitimate interest.
Back on. Okay, committee, we'll move on. B23 S3730, land to the north of Oxford Road near Horsepath. And the planning officer is Sharon Crawford. So over to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I've got a few additional comments to report since the committee report was prepared. The Parish Council have maintained their objection. They continue to have concerns that this site should not be used for human burials because of what they think is a serious risk to public health when this site frequently and demonstrably suffers surface flooding, and water from that surface flooding flows out from the site into the adjacent Oxford Road before draining away into the catchment of the Northfield Brook. We've also received 2 other comments from groups who use the parking area on weekdays and weekends regarding concern over conflict over parking spaces and noise from loudspeakers and events. The application seeks full planning permission for a new burial ground to meet the needs of Oxford City. And the site is indicated on the plan in front of you. It's on the main road from Oxford to Horsepath. The site is currently a field and of some 7.34 hectares in size. It is estimated that there will be some 120 burials per year, and the site will provide burial space for the next 40 to 45 years. The site will be brought forward in 2 phases, with the southern phase at the front of the site being brought into use first. The northern phase will be managed as a wildflower meadow until it is brought into use. The existing field access, which is down in this location onto Oxford Road, is to be closed, and a new access will be provided with drainage features designed to prevent runoff onto the road. The new access will only be used by hearses, those with mobility issues and maintenance staff. Parking for the majority of visitors to the site will be accommodated on the existing parking area for the athletics ground immediately adjacent to the site. A connecting walkway between the car park and the burial site is proposed as part of the application. The site lies in the Oxford Greenbelt, but cemeteries are not inappropriate development, and the principle of development is acceptable. The material considerations set out in the report have been adequately addressed and justified. The main There are two areas of concern from the parish council and users of the current car park to the athletics ground that require further comment. On the issue of drainage, the site is in flood zone 1, but currently experiences runoff onto Oxford Road in periods of high rainfall. The site is currently a field and there is no management of water on site at present. Oops, sorry, there's something wrong with sharing the screen. I'll just get back to the presentation. Bear with you one moment. Sorry, there we go. There we go. With the use of the site as a burial ground, runoff will be controlled by a series of lined swales. You can't really see it very well, but they are highlighted in yellow on the plan. The swales are shallow excavated channels designed to capture, slow and infiltrate surface runoff. The flood risk assessment and drainage strategy sets out that the lined swales are to be connected to the watercourse to minimise risk of surface water flooding on the site and avoiding risk of any contaminated grey water being discharged to the watercourse. The site's grey water strategy will follow Environment Agency guidance for groundwater protection for new cemeteries. Measures to reduce risk of contamination, such as the isolation of swales from any subsurface water, are included. In addition, there will be no burials within 30 metres of the brook on the eastern boundary and no burials within 10 metres of the shallow ditch of the western boundary. With these controls in place, the site will not adversely increase the risk to vulnerable receptors from grey water sources. The Environment Agency, Oxford County Council as lead local flood authority, and the council's drainage officer have no objection to the scheme, subject to the proposed conditions. On the issue of parking for the majority of visitors to the site will be accommodated on the existing parking area. The existing parking area is shown at the top, the proposal is to repaint the lines on the proposed car park, which will provide an additional 15 spaces specifically for the use of the burial ground. Burial events generally occur at off-peak hours between 9 AM and 3 PM on weekdays, which are generally not times of high sport use. In addition, burial events will not be scheduled at times of pre-notified sporting events of high parking demand. Overall, the scheme is considered acceptable and I commend the application to you subject to the suggested conditions. I do have a few changes to the proposed conditions set out in your report, and I have them on the screen at the end of photographs. Sorry, it's rather small. Let me see if I can increase the size of that for you. So firstly, the condition 5, the surface water drainage condition, the discharge rate to Northmoor Brook should be amended from 2 litres per second to 3 litres per second. Condition 10 becomes a compliance condition because the applicant has provided satisfactory details about the cycle parking. And I'm suggesting an additional condition 18 to secure parking and the line painting so that it should be carried out prior to the first burial on the site. So subject to those few tweaks to the conditions, I commend the application to you. Oh, I do have to say, if you have any questions in relation to drainage issues, in particular parking issues or the hours of operation, please take the opportunity to ask the applicant and their team.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Okay, we have 4 speakers registered here. As Raymond, Carrie Unwin, Steve McCoy and Alan Poulton. Are you all here? Have you all agreed? Because you've only got 5 minutes.
Yes, we've all agreed. Yeah.
Okay. If you're not sat at the table, we can't answer your question.
We're not sat at the table, we can't answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Around the table, no way. Look, in this instance,
I'm the main speaker, but if there are questions.
Yeah, the technical issues.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. My time starts.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Okay. Right, I'm Carrie Unwin. I'm Regeneration Manager and Landscape Architect at Oxford City Council, and I'm the project manager for this Oxford Burial Meadow. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to address the committee on this important proposal of the Burial Meadow. This Burial Meadow is urgently needed to address the issue of the acute shortage of burial space in our city of Oxford, which has become a real critical issue. I think we all value the choice to be buried, either by loved ones or ourselves. We just probably take that for granted. 20% of us each year make that choice, and we all value that chance to be buried in the town we live in. It's an important civic function and a way of sort of connection. And so this is a very important matter that Oxford has cemetery space. As well as that, some of us or our neighbours, are of specific faith groups where burial is an essential part of practicing our faith. And so again, for that issue, an important equality issue, it's critical that Oxford City has provision for all of its residents to choose burials should they wish. This site is on a land owned by Oxford City Council on the edge of Oxford, and met our criteria for the project in terms of being accessible to Oxford for residents to visit and go and visit the grave after, as well as attend burial events. Also, it meets the ground conditions that are necessary, and it's in a peaceful, sort of tranquil location that will make a great open space suitable for this important function. Outlines designs were developed, which were excellent by our landscape architects, with swathes of woodland planting and wildflower planting to create a wonderful new public green space and burial meadow. We put those designs then to our interfaith group, who've worked with us to develop this proposal, and then out to wider public consultation. We had 480 responses, and an overwhelming 91% of those were in favour of Oxford having this burial meadow. Again, on this planning application, you'll see there's 68 letters of support to this planning application, which again is notable. It will provide 40 to 50 years burial capacity for the City of Oxford's burial needs, and again, it will address this burial space shortage and be sustainable for the long term. We acknowledge the site's in the green belt, but as Sharon stated, it's acceptable in terms of furthering those purposes. Again, it's a pretty effective way of maintaining open space, having a burial meadow. And in that sense, this naturalistic design with new tree planting, woodland copses, wildflower meadows is very appropriate, suitable for this site and for the long term. It demonstrates, our planning statement demonstrates the design also meets the soil and hydrology needs, and then it also meets the policies of national and local planning policy on provision of community facilities and a natural environment and delivering high quality development. Numerous technical reports have been submitted with this planning application. And again, as we've gone through the determination process, we've addressed all of the comments and concerns from a range of consultees, which basically has just meant that the scheme has got better and better. We want to bring everyone with us. And again, with the sports club's concern over extra parking, we're pleased to make sure we can provide those extra spaces. And so there'll be no adverse impacts on parking for sports clubs. Again, with the Environment Agency and Lead Local Flood Authority comments, we carried out the extensive monitoring and have put line swales in to ensure that there won't be any adverse impacts on runoff or contamination, and they've all removed their objections, so satisfied with the changes we've made. We do acknowledge Horsforth Parish Council maintains an objection. We've responded several times to
Last
them.
30 seconds.
But yeah, in summary, it's important Oxford City has a cemetery. It would be the only city in the UK not to if this didn't proceed. And again, we ensured a high value scheme that will deliver this naturalistic burial meadow, ensuring burial choice for all.
Thank you. My name's Ajaz. I'm the city councillor, and we've been working really hard for several sites over the years. We found this site to be viable. I think you officers worked really hard to address all the concerns from the local parish council and neighbouring residents, and I think they've all, hence it's taken like 2.5 years plus to get here. So I think that everything's been satisfied. I'd just like to thank your officers, especially, and our officers for all their hard work, and I hope that you can.
Okay, that's over your 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm not going to be answering any questions, so we'll move over so it's easier for you guys.
It's all right. Okay. I think we all have the questions, and I think you might be able to answer the questions of do we need it, but any questions, committee? That's stopping.
I just wanted to ask, well, I had a number of questions, but the first one is, will Oxford City Council be managing the site going forward? How will it be operated? Is there an organisation that will be running it, or will the council themselves be running?
Yeah, so Caroline's here she's our burial services manager.
Yeah.
And
So Oxford City Council, we are ODS, which is a trading company of Oxford City Council, so a LATCO to Oxford City Council, and we will be managing and running the cemetery. We already manage and run the 4 current cemeteries, which are full. But we still carry, where we're reopening graves, that's the burials that will go ahead in those cemeteries. We already manage those along with the 12 closed cemeteries and churchyards in Oxford.
My second question was about car parking. There was reference in the planning officer's report to an additional 15 spaces, but I'm aware that at some burials, very large numbers of mourners might turn up. What is the total capacity of this car park? How many spaces?
Just to really address that, that was a key issue which we were sort of like wrangling over with the sports clubs in that sense. But it was brilliant in terms of so burial events basically have a low number of cars. Normally you did surveys and the average was 12. And then also on the other side, what we did is at our interfaith forum, we worked with the faith communities and said, look, we know you normally have low numbers. Are you okay to sort of do car sharing or minibuses or coach drop off if there are larger events? So we can basically say that there's this ceiling of a maximum number of 15 cars allowed to any burial event. And again, Caroline, you can.
We had a large funeral late last year of a service member in Botley Cemetery. We have the second largest war graves cemetery within that cemetery. We had a very large forces burial there, and the arrangement, and it showed it worked. They had their service within the city, and then we had a busing arrangement to bring the actual mourners to the cemetery. So all of those mourners came by bus that dropped them and then left the actual site. And the only vehicles that came onto site was the hearse and the 2 limousines that came along with that burial. But that's what we already run that within the cemeteries.
And Caroline, we've already sort of worked. We've put the form that says you have, if you're
if anybody is booking a burial with us, there is a form they sign to declare that is the maximum number of vehicles that can come along to that actual service.
Just one other thing very quickly, if I'm permitted. The building, there is a building, an open-sided building, shelter. And I was just slightly confused in the report as to whether or not we were ending up with a steel frame building or timber.
Steve,
Basic timber structure with a cover into the roof. Yeah.
And the purpose of this, obviously, just if it's raining.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, we almost as a council weren't necessarily wanting it. We hadn't thought we would need it, but I know there were sort of comments, look, hang on, if it's heavy rain, you know, let's be realistic here. And I think it was actually Oxford Preservation Trust themselves who said, look, no, okay, we're actually okay about that. We do want the site open, but we are okay that in heavy rain, there's somewhere to go just to sort of like gather. So, yeah.
So there might be some sort of service held under there?
No, not normally, but obviously some groups may choose to sort of gather for prayers or something under there, but it's not specifically, again, it's just for everyone to use in the course of.
So and I Muslim, in the Muslim prayer that's carried out at the mosque, but just as when we are burying somebody, we will just pray over that. Normally is about 5 minutes or 6 minutes. That will be just over the grave. It would be essentially over the grave. If it was heavy rain, they may decide to just do that under there, but not necessarily. It's not something that happens in Muslim faith. Okay, Peter Ramsden.
Yeah, can you just confirm again when burials would be scheduled?
Already our burial times are between 9 in the morning, and really our latest is 1:30, 2 o'clock. At the moment, we may occasionally go to 3 o'clock, depending on availability of grave diggers, etc.
Is that during the week, not weekends?
Yeah, it's Monday to Friday. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I would say that I know that car park very well from going to Harvard Rugby Club. It's the big car park. And rugby at weekends and evenings. I've been to big evening games. There's always been plenty of spaces. During the day, the car park is pretty empty, and it's really only used for parking for the Oxford Bus Company. And you get driving schools training their pupils there. So I have absolutely no concern at all about problems with parking during the schedules that you've spoken about.
It's not.
Excuse me. What is the difference between a burial meadow and a cemetery?
I think, again, it's just lovely. We wanted to make the most of this site, which is sort of very tranquil, open and sort of countryside site. So just felt that calling it a burial meadow, it has gravel paths, which are sort of curving, naturalistic. And I suppose sometimes when people think of cemetery, you might think of sort of more the formal, traditional sort of rigid layout, which this isn't. So I think it's just a name in one sense. But
there are formal grave places and surrounds. Are there? It's not like a woodland burial site.
No, there will be space if people want that. There will be sort of pockets on the edge, but not large numbers of people choose that currently. So there will be headstones, but we're going to have special burial rules and regulations.
Yeah, this is only low headstones, not the curb sets that you're thinking of. We say traditional cemeteries. Most cemeteries are Victorian. Victorians like lavish decoration, so they were quite happy to have 16-foot tall angels, as you'll find in there. Whereas modern day, we don't accept that now. And generally speaking, it's about 80 centimetres, less than a metre high headstone generally, and they would be on concrete rather underground that hold that headstone there, but nothing, no curb sets or anything in front.
Matte stone, not shiny, because again, just from that, we want it to be low impact landscape led. So
it is a cemetery, but it's much lower impact, really, much more naturalistic than a traditional cemetery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
No further questions. As the drainage engineer is here, could you explain how these swales work?
Yes. So the following consultations with the Environment Agency particularly, there were a series of ground investigations done to demonstrate how the soil was working and how water was passing either through it or over it. And what that demonstrated was that the soils are low permeability generally. There are pockets of higher permeability material. So the water that accumulates at the southeast corner of the site, near the site entrance, is actually water that's hitting the surface of the ground and running over the surface of the ground and then accumulating at the lowest point of the site, which is adjacent to the road. So the swales are aligned basically so that they follow the contours of the ground. They're arranged at intervals up the slope so that they all intercept a relatively small portion of the site. The water will run across the surface. Because they're lined, it can't run through the ground into the swales. It has to run across the surface, therefore it's not travelled through the graves. It runs into the swales, where the swales then collect the water and provide that attenuation that we need to reduce the runoff rate. And then they are interconnected ultimately. So in the southern part of the site, they will actually enter the water course ultimately in the southeast corner of the site. And then similarly for the northern site, there will be an outfall which is likely to be in the southeast corner of the northern part of the site, so just north of where the public footpath currently crosses the site.
Okay, thank you. Committee seems happy. Okay, all right. Well, committee will go. So thank you very much for your time. No local member, so we go back to the planning officer for questions if you have any. Yeah, Councillor Sutherland, sorry.
Yeah, good. So I think it's Horspath Parish Council were talking about nuisance from graves, and I know you sort of had a bit of kind of language you used. There was a bit of doubt about that. You could just refer to it.
Well, the Environment Agency control cemeteries and burial grounds, and they have looked at this scheme very carefully. Their initial concerns and objection have been addressed by the additional drainage information they've received, and they have signed off on site, and they don't have any concerns about pollution to the water courses. So,
because presumably it's obviously quite a normal thing. So it either happened or it doesn't. And is that why you're sort of saying, they raised this, but actually it doesn't really have any kind of.
They have raised it as a perfectly legitimate concern, but the Environment Agency have confirmed that they've got no objection and the pollution to the groundwater should not occur, subject to the conditions that we've.
So their concern is legitimate. It's just the Environment Agency say they disagree. So
it should be mitigated by the conditions.
Mitigated, yeah. That's okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If you finish with questions, I'm looking for a proposal.
Propose we accept.
Obviously, recommendation for acceptance. That's seconded. Thank you, Councillor Topping. Do you wish to make your statement now? Or? Yep.
Very, very briefly, I mean, we actually had the same situation in Wheatley where we have a full burial ground, so we understand the community's need for this. I mean, it seems to me to be a very well thought through and well researched and planned development, and I think we should support it.
Okay, thank you.
I can see a lot of positives and very few, if any, negatives, so we should be supporting this.
Okay. Committee, any debate? Seeing no debate, so I'll go back to Councillor Ramsdale to sum up.
I suggest I recommend that we approve.
Okay, all those in favour, please. Sorry, hang on. We need to just stress that there are changes in conditions.
All right.
So
yes, there's two changes to the conditions that you have on your list. There's the change to the surface water drainage condition in condition 5 about the outflow to the North Moor Brook, changing from 2 litres per second to 3 litres per second, or vice versa. And then the condition 10 for cycle parking becomes compliance condition because we've received acceptable details about cycle parking. And then there's additional condition 18 to secure the line painting in the parking area and the provision of the parking.
Okay, thank you. Right, we'll go for the vote now. All those in favour, please show. That is unanimous. So thank you very much, everybody. Before we go, back of our agenda papers, there are the appeals, and you'll see the appeals started, including enforcement appeals and appeals decided. Well, Kathy's asked me to point out that.
No, just to note the appeals.
No, there's appeal for the
Yeah.
Chalgrove one, but there is an online meeting regularly.
There are regular meetings with members that have been set up to discuss appeals if we have any queries.
So that was it. There are regular online meetings to discuss appeals if you wish to.
In general.
In
Yeah.
general or specific.
Yeah, they've been set up more or less monthly to talk about appeals with members if you have any
No, I
queries.
think I went to the last one.
Yeah.
Yes. Chair, just on the 160 houses in Chalgrove, I mean, it does feel to me like we made the right decision to refuse that, bearing in mind all the various objections from the Environment Agency in terms of water. Yet it was overturned. I think it's
Sorry, which one was it?
Yeah,
that's
the Chalgrove one, yes. I think they're looking at it.
Yeah, I think they really should have been.
Yeah. So what might happen? Yeah.
Well, could I just ask that? I have a written answer from the planning department. I questioned whether there was any chance of appeal, and the answer back was that the barrister had been consulted and had said there was a very low chance of success, and that I took that to mean that there was no further.
That is correct. But I think we can explain that in more detail at the sessions that we've set up with members.
Yeah.
Could I ask, are there any forms of redress other than judicial review for an inspector appeal?
We can challenge a decision, but we took advice from council, and they advised that the decision had been prepared in such a way that it wasn't likely to be challengeable. So we've had that.
When you say we can challenge a decision by an inspector, what is the legal name for that challenge?
It's not a judicial review. It's querying with pins the inspector's decision on a point of law. Yeah. So if they've missed something out that they should have considered.
Yeah,
they did miss. They did.
They're normally pretty comprehensive in what they cover. They're very sort of wording. But I think if you take council's opinion, not the council, but the council, if you take their opinion and they say no, then I think you've got to take because they're going to process the appeal. So if they're not convinced it's actually going to get anywhere, then you're going to take that.
And isn't there a huge cost to it?
And there's costs as well.
Huge cost. Well understood from the call.
I think cost not the major consideration. The major consideration was, are we likely to win it?
It is,
yeah.
However,
if you say no, then you know, much as you'd like to, I think you just got
a critical test.
But we can discuss it more at these monthly meetings that are set up rather than take up the council's time. Finish time here. Thank you very much. It's not yet 8 o'clock, is it? No, it's not.
We only have 2 applications in front of us tonight.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I've always told there's so many applications waiting to go to committee. And we got 2 this evening. So are there lots waiting to come to committee or not?
There will be quite a few coming. Because of our planned shutdown, there's not a South committee now, I think until the 18th of May. So it was imperative that we got these, applications through now rather than wait till the 18th of May and maybe have,
Yeah, well, saying why aren't there more? If we're meeting every 3 weeks.
Not ready for this meeting, I suppose.
Well, they weren't ready for this meeting, yeah.
Is it because the officers don't have enough time to put them together for the meeting, or what's the problem?
Well, there's a variety of reasons.
I think it's worth noting when these two applications we had tonight, the burial one is a 2023 application. So I think it was essential that one went through. If it's ready to come to committee, then it needs to come through.
It takes a while to overcome objections from statutory.
I can understand that. I'm just saying, is it a lack of officers bringing them forward? Do we need more planning officers?
No, I think it's a matter of applications not being ready because we're waiting for consultation comments. Yeah.
So our next meeting I've got in as the 20th of May, is that correct?
20th.
Yes. And then, but maybe we're going to have to put some extra ones in. Yeah.
We might have to,
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
I think we've had this conversation before, not everybody wants to have it, but We've had that one tonight, is it Great Hazley, and it's come to the committee because of Great Hazley. They haven't appeared tonight to speak, and they were basically the only objection. You know,
Yeah, they did try to register to speak, but late. So, as you know, I won't allow it, so.